How's it going? Ash here. Welcome to Extra Gent Scents. Didn't see you there. Take a load off. Yeah, just hang out with me here for a little bit. We're gonna have a chat. We're gonna talk about some masculine fragrances, some classically masculine fragrances. Got some old school scents here today. Some fragrances that are gonna put a little hair right at the tippy top part of your chest right here. The part where if you unbutton the top button, it's looking like an 80s TV series protagonist. That's how you're gonna be looking. Gonna help you grow a mustache. If you got a patchy beard, it's gonna fill that in. You're gonna be golden. So yeah, some fragrances that are very much leaning toward the masculine side of things. Fragrances that frankly are not really all that much in style anymore, for better or for worse. These ones not falling into that blue fragrance style. There's some scents that I absolutely love, and I want to talk to you guys about them here today. So let's check them out. Some of these are easier to find than others. One of them is discontinued and not very easy to find unless you go to eBay or a specialty store that deals in discontinued fragrances, but I still want to talk about them. And I'll throw out those codes here for you guys. I'm sure you're aware of them by this point, but Gents10, twistedlily.com will save you 10% off the website. Joma Shop, Gents8, save you $8 off any order over 110. So if you shop for fragrances at either of those stores, keep those codes in mind. Where to start here? Let's just kick it off with this one, Monsieur de Givenchy. This fragrance has had a few different bottle styles. I have a couple different ones. This is the one that I grabbed for the video, obviously. So there it is. And this is one of my favorites of everything that we're going to talk about here today. Now, obviously, it's not going to really get all that much love with today's market, the fragrances that people are wearing, and the fragrances, frankly, that this house is really pushing. So it's definitely the type of scent that's gonna fly under the radar. It's a very unassuming presentation and unassuming bottle. The fragrance itself smells really, really nice, especially if, like me, you like fragrances that have a little bit of a green tinge to them. This one's nice and aromatic, very, very fresh, easy to wear. It's got a lemon bergamot openings and then verbena in there, which always in my mind kind of harkens to green Irish tweed, or at least when you smell it very prominently in a fragrance, that's one of the first fragrances that I'll think about with that ingredient, with that note. It's got oak moss in the base, which helps further accentuate that kind of old school freshness that the scent has. Now, some people would tell you this is a dated fragrance, that it smells too old school to pull off nowadays. I really don't think that it does, though. I think it smells a little bit more modern than something like Eau Sauvage Eau de Toilette does, but it's not completely entirely removed from that type of scent in general. Next up, let's talk about a fragrance that came out in 1951. It is from Floris. It's number 89. So this fragrance is the fragrance that James Bond wore. So if you want to smell like James Bond, this one is fresh, but not quite as bright and lively as the last fragrance that we talked about. You get citrus in here, just like the last fragrance, but it's not as brisk. Got a good amount of lavender in here, and then florals, which is something that you'll see in a number of these fragrances. Florals were used much more often in older masculine fragrances, especially notes like carnation that you don't really see used at all nowadays. So this one's gonna give you a nice mixture of masculine floral notes. You pick it up right away in the top, and also as it heads through the mid into the dry down. Oak moss, once again, with additional woody notes, and that woodiness you can pick up pretty much right away as well. It lays a nice base for everything to play off of. As soon as you spray it on your skin, you'll pick it up and it'll stay there the whole time. And this is a fragrance that at discounters is typically pretty affordable, so it makes it much more attractive. So a solid pickup, great smelling fragrance, and still works today, I think. And that one, like pretty much everything in this list here today, going to appeal more to guys middle-aged and older. If you're a younger guy, probably aren't gonna like any of these unless you have a big time appreciation for older scents. Next, let's talk about a classic here, Halston Z-14. And the first bottle that I ever got of Halston Z-14 was actually a Jeff Gordon bottle. So I had like Jeff Gordon on the front of the box, and yeah, I guess they were going for the NASCAR crowd, and that's the one I got. I think, was it Dale Earnhardt Jr.? It was like Drakkar Noir. I think. He had a Drakkar Noir bottle. It makes me think there had to be a lot of different NASCAR drivers that were really popular that were associated with fragrances, a lot of them that I'm obviously missing here. So if you guys know of any, drop them in the comments, like NASCAR drivers and their fragrances that they were the faces of. Don't really see that anymore, I don't think. So it's kind of interesting, like a snapshot in time. Now, the bottle on this, as pretty much always, it's pretty cheap. The atomizer is, it's not great. And you can see there, the crimp, there's no collar around that. And it's just a little dinky, cheap plastic cap. What really makes this fragrance for me is the cypress. That's always what I've thought about with this scent, is that cypress in the opening, but then there's also cinnamon. So it's this interesting mix of woods and then sweet spice and a little touch of warmth, and then leather as the fragrance dries down. And this one gets compared all the time to Tom Ford's Italian cypress. So you could think of this as the more affordable older brother that eventually led Tom Ford to do Italian cypress. Really masculine fragrance and very, very inexpensive. So a nice one to have in the collection. Next up, let's talk about this one from Aramis, Tuscany per Uomo. Now this unfortunately is not a vintage bottle of the fragrance. I'd love to have one. Maybe I will one day. Look at the coloration on this. It's like neon highlighter yellow. Don't remember if it was that color when I got it or not. Got a little bit of a similarity to Azzaro Pour Homme, which is another fragrance that would fit perfectly in this video that I'm not featuring today, but it would work. And that one's actually much more affordable than this one nowadays. So yeah. So you got a citrus in the opening once again, and it is that more old school style of citrus. If you're familiar with that, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not, it's not quite as sweet, not as juicy, you might say, as most of the citrus notes that are being used in modern men's fragrances. Instead, it has more of a sharpness to it. It kind of cuts through the notes and hits your nose right away when you smell it. You've also got the staple note of lavender in the top here. You've got anise, got kind of a barbershop-y feel to it. Nice and clean, but with this masculine oak moss leather base. This one isn't crazy expensive nowadays to get a bottle like this, but it is a lot more expensive than it used to be. This fragrance used to be pretty affordable from discounters, but over the years the price has gone up. Next, let's talk about this absolute gem, Luciano Pavarotti. This is discontinued, and if you want it, you're gonna have to look on eBay, or like I said at the beginning of the video, there are some stores that specialize in discontinued fragrances, which is where I got mine. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to check it out, the exact store that I bought mine from. And just so you're aware, there is one other fragrance from this house for men, and it was just called Luciano. So that's a completely different one. This one is so much better than you would expect. It's just like a fragrance that comes out of left field almost, because I mean, yes, the namesake was a huge opera singer. I'm not an expert in the field by any means, but even when I was a child, I knew who he was. It was just one of those deals where at some point you heard about him over and over and over again. Maybe it was like commercials for some of his musical compilations, like trying to sell CDs or something, but knew who he was. Sick eyebrows, real good. The fragrance is just crazy. It's like, what? It's such a difference. And I don't mean this to downplay like current celebrity fragrances or anything like that, because there are some ones that are really solid fragrances coming out nowadays underneath different celebrities' names. But the perceived, anyway, quality difference, my perception between this one and what's coming out now is just, it's like astronomical. It's like the Grand Canyon. When you smell this, the quality is just right away in your face. It's got depth, richness, complexity. It's heavy, but at the same time, not off-putting. You've got a multitude of different notes giving it some freshness in the opening, but those do get swallowed up pretty quickly by this warmth and sweetness underneath everything. You have honey and resins, leather, patchouli, oak moss, floral notes, a good amount of floral notes, frankly, but it never comes across feminine to me. Has very good staying power, lasts on your skin for a good amount of time, projects very well. The only thing it's maybe a drawback for me, and it's not really a drawback, it's a product of the time, is the presentation is a little, the bottle is fine, the cap is, it's cheap. The atomizer is not very good. Not very good at all, but it is really nice and it's actually pretty unique. It doesn't really smell exactly like anything else out there. It's its own thing. There's a lot to love about that one. I am pumped to own that now. I think it ran me like 120 roundabout. I think it was about 120. After that, let's talk about Pasha de Cartier. This is the Eau de Toilette. Nowadays, Pasha de Cartier does get talked about, but it's the new flankers, the parfums that are coming out, the limited edition that just came out, stuff like that. You got lavender in the top here mixing together with mint. Lavender you find in so many masculine fragrances, and that mint gives it a really nice uplifting feeling, touch of green in there as well. You've got anise in here, which is another note that you see frequently in older style fragrances. And then really the woodiness is what helps set this apart as well. A good amount, oak moss, once again, finding its way in the base of this fragrance. And it's gonna give you a little bit of that barbershop kind of feel once again. Great classically masculine scent, came out in 92. So it's not as old as some of the other ones here, but it does a great job at pulling off that aromatic, fresh, masculine type of scent. Last but not least, from Penhaligons Endymion, and this is the cologne. So in here you have lavender. Once again, you see it pretty much all over the place when you're talking about this type of fragrance. You got a little bit of citrus in there. You have some sage, giving it an aromatic feel once again. And one of the notes that sets this apart a little bit is coffee. And it's maybe a little bit of an acquired taste with the fragrance, because when you first smell it and you pick that up, that nuance of coffee, you might think, I don't know how much that fits together, how much that works. You know, you've got this fresh, classically masculine aromatic side, and then you're tossing in coffee bean. It's two different worlds. You also have a mix of like warm spices and fresh spices in here. So it's like two different sides playing together and melding together to make the fragrance work. Whereas some of these fragrances are more just straight up dense and masculine and powerful, and then others are just fresh with that old school feel. This one is mixing both. It is possibly, outside of maybe Z-14, the weakest fragrance of this bunch, and that's a little bit of a bummer, but the fragrance itself smells very, very good, so I overlooked that. Don't really care about it too much, the fact that it's not a real powerhouse. There is a higher concentration version of the scent though, so you could check that out if it's a problem for you. All right guys, that will do it for me. Thank you guys for hanging with me here. It's actually late at night when I'm shooting this, so just thought I'd kind of do something real quick off the top of my head about some of these old school masculine fragrances I like a lot. Should have put Drakkar Noir in here, but you got to give other fragrances a shine sometimes. Stay safe out there guys. I'll see you again another time with another video. See you guys.